Now we're going to hand over to Warwick Allen, who is a researcher in plant ecology from Manaki Whenua, and he's going to talk about an ecological impact assessment.
Thanks. So I'm presenting today on behalf of the team at Manaki Whenua and Niwa, as well as a couple of other external collaborators. And similar to what Lee is doing in the marine environment, we are focusing on assessing the cyclone impacts on terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems to inform the response and recovery of the cyclone. And a great example of the types of impacts that we're interested in is centered in this photo of Opuahia Kiwi crash in the Hawke's Bay. As you can see, a large slip has come through and demolished the predator-proof fence that's essential to protecting the kiwi that are inside the crash. And this is sort of a great example of an immediate impact of the cyclone that needs a response and recovery. But there's also medium-term concerns here as well. As you can see, there's a large steep hill beside the fence, and so this sort of indicates that we might sort of see future events that are similar as well, and so there's a need for future planning so that we might better respond or be able to prevent these sorts of impacts in the future. So a couple of the main objectives of our project. We're going to take a bird's eye view to begin with, using some of those aerial imagery that was spoken about earlier, and intersecting those with various spatial layers, such as the land cover database, maps of QE2 covenants, protected areas, and so on. And this is to identify the most impacted ecosystems and changes in the extent and condition of the vegetation cover following the cyclone. And then we're going to pair that bird's eye view with a ground-based assessment of damage to various ecosystems and species. This will be broad scale, but will largely sort of focus on indigenous forests, changes to wetland condition and vegetation, naturally uncommon ecosystems. So this includes ecosystems such as sand dunes, gravel beaches, estuaries, braided rivers. And then also we are going to look into impacts on threatened or taonga species, and also Niwa's side of the project looking at changes in macroinvertebrate communities and also migratory and non-migratory freshwater fish, which also ties into threatened or taonga species such as tuna eels and inanga whitebait. So we have this short-term perspective where we're going to, within 6 months, identify the worst affected ecosystems and species to inform where the immediate recovery efforts are required. So an example of this would be shore plover in the Hawke's Bay. 9 individuals were lost from an aviary due to drowning during the flooding event. This doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually 3% of the global population. So this is an example of where immediate recovery efforts will be required. And after 18 months, we want to be able to identify ecosystems and species that will require future management interventions that will either aid with recovery or help to prepare for future extreme weather events. And we're already engaging with a number of stakeholders, including regional councils, Department of Conservation, QE2 Trust, and eco sanctuaries. These stakeholders can help identify pre-existing baseline data sets, which we can then go ahead and resurvey to assess impacts, location of sites, and so on. And the longer time frame will also allow us to engage with iwi and hapu through our already existing relationships in the worst affected areas. And so, yeah, by the end of the year, we will have delivered a preliminary report on those immediate responses required for recovery. And then by September next year, the final report, we will also identify those medium-term recovery events that need to occur. So, yeah, thank you.